Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Redonkulous Gaming. This is Veetster, and today we're going to review a game called Orc Island. This game was sent to us by the developer, and they requested that we do a review for it. And so I just kind of want to give that disclaimer first that this game was provided to us. So, the game at first blush will instantly make you think of Minecraft. The game, has blocks and you collect minerals and you convert those minerals into objects which you can use to create weapons and defenses and a variety of other tools that can help you get through the game itself. But that's kind of where that nuance stops. The game itself, first and foremost, is a survival game. Your goal is to survive this island, which at night, what happens is orcs come out, orcs will attack you, and orcs will try to kill you. And as you go through the day, your whole goal is to collect resources, build tools, build weapons, build a defense such that you can survive through the night and make it through the next day to start all over and collect resources and try to build up your defenses again. Big part of this also is building food, growing food and making sure you can survive and have enough such that you can live throughout the night. So with that, this game has a lot of pros and cons. And I think we're just going to go through those pros and cons to give you guys an idea of where I kind of like some parts of the game, but where I found some of the parts of the game quite challenging. So first of all, I'm going to go through the pros list. And the thing that I liked about it was there was a lot of things to build. It was, you could turn your stone, you could turn your wood into a variety of different objects, which could help you build up defenses. And what was also kind of cool about it was that there was kind of a structured design such that you would take wood that you collected, and then you would build a sawhorse, and that sawhorse you would then use to create planks, and the planks would then be converted into boards. And that kind of staged design was kind of cool because it's kind of a behavior that's very similar to real life crafting. When you start with the raw wood, you have to go through those processes to get to a final board that you can use to build something else. So that was kind of cool. It was kind of a unique feature that the developers chose to implement into the game and take advantage of all the resources that you're going to collect. And secondly, another pro is that the game is a survival game. First and foremost, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be you start out with nothing, you build up your resources, you build up your weapons, you build up your tools in order to survive through the night, in order to make it through the next day and see how long can you go. These type of games have been very popular. They've, whether it's from DayZ to PUBG, kind of where you get dropped in, you have nothing. You have no capability to survive until you collect parts, you collect components that you can use to, whether it's build weapons, whether it's build, a defensive area, bandages, but you get stuff that can help you survive the encounters and make it to the end. And this is kind of the premise behind Orc Island is that you do start with nothing and you have to collect and build in order to get to the end of the game. And that end is just, it keeps going, right? So each day can get harder, each day can get easier. It all depends on how efficient you are. So it leads you to kind of create this efficient type behavior in your movements and your steps such that you optimize everything so you can build as much and as powerful a defense as possible once the evening comes in. So with that, though, the game's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the one that's looking for the easy game and the kind of kick back and relax game, because the day and night cycles come really quickly. So, you can't just take your time and build up this massive castle like in Minecraft and, hide out in it and think you're safe. There's a lot involved in the game. And it's always constantly keeping you on your toes, and it's constantly keeping the adrenaline running as you're trying to survive and escape and fight and kill the orcs so that you can make it to the next day and try to build up your resources again. And with that, and then again, just unlike Minecraft, there's really nowhere that's safe to hide. You can build a building, you can try to build some defenses, but the orcs will be very aggressive and will attack to try to get through it and will try to destroy everything you've built. So you could build all your tool benches, all your sawhorses, all your barrels, and at the end of the day, if you leave those sitting outside or you don't kind of protect them or hide them somewhere, the orcs are just gonna run right through them, destroy them, and you have to build them again. And that, again, leads to that inefficiency where now you're going to collect materials to rebuild all these tools that you need in order to create new defenses or weapons. And so you lose that efficiency, you lose it, and it leads you to be a little bit more strategic in the game itself, which is kind of interesting. Um, and the days, again, you take your days, you build up your arsenal, you build up your defenses, you build up your resources such as food and all that, so that at night you can make it through and make it through the night. And so you're going to need a lot of resources in the background, whether it's food, whether it's arrows, whether it's swords, but you need stuff that will keep you and let you last throughout the night. Otherwise, you won't make it very far if you don't plan and build all these kind of tools and weapons and stuff that you're going to need to make it through. So, with that, the game's got kind of definitely an interesting premise behind it. It's got a lot of potential. It's got a lot of hope. But unfortunately, there's a lot of cons behind this game. And first, let's talk about that building interface. I talked the uniqueness of that building interface. But again, you have to remember, this is a survival game. The time it takes for you to go through those multiple steps, and not only go through those steps, but have to search through the menu to find these steps, is very time consuming, and it's not very conducive for you to survive. When I'm converting raw wood to a board, and then I have to now take that board and convert it to a block, and take that block and now place it and adjust it. That's 3 extra steps that I've taken when really I should be doing it in one, such that I can try to be able to build up defenses and take my time to build arrows and build swords and stuff that will let me survive the night. Instead, I'm spending all this time and energy just crafting, and it does not, that it breaks away from that behavior of the game, or what the developers were trying to do in creating a survival game. So now you're not a survival game, you're a crafting game that has a huge survival aspect to it. And it's very disjunctive, that concept, when you put that complicated kind of crafting menu in place. So that was one of the big cons I felt about the game that really affected this behavior of a survival game. Second, the game, the way it stands today, has very low replayability. The island is fixed. It's you reset it, and it's the exact same island over and over and over again. So once you've learned the island, where all the materials are, where where Gronk is, where all the food is, you can keep going back to those exact same places and become more efficient and make it like a speed run, where you just run, grab all your minerals, build what you need, survive, and then keep going it. And each day basically comes to, as you progress further into the game, finding out where everything is, so that you can then go collect it for the next day. And where you run into the wall is where you've run out of the materials, or you don't know where anything is anymore. So then you have to go search, and that eats up time. But once you search and you find it, guess what? You're ready for that next round, when you have to, perhaps when you died, you have to start from day one again. You know where everything is, you just go and you collect it. So, with this type of game, if you don't have that kind of procedurally generated island so that it's unique each time, you're going to get bored of it, because you know where everything is, and you're not going to feel challenged after a while. So that's one thing that was another thing that I found was a big issue with the game itself, was its replayability. The next thing was the NPCs. It's an interesting concept. During the day, you have chickens that, if you grow plants, you have chickens that try to steal your food and steal your plants. And then at night, you have the orcs as the NPCs. Well, the problem was that if you waited a few minutes, all these NPCs would swarm. So you got to a point where all the chickens on the island would always walk together. And at night, after a minute or two, once the orcs started spawning, they would all congregate together. It does give a unique sense on the orc side that at least you're being swarmed and you have to survive a true siege, not just a one-off attack each time. But that was also a problem because if you were not efficient, you didn't collect enough materials to survive, you weren't going to defeat them, and you weren't going to outrun them either because they're pretty fast and pretty strong. So you're just going to lose your health very quickly, and you can't stop to cook, you can't stop to eat, and so you can't survive through the night. And that's a big problem when they're clumping together and they're swarming like that. Just like the chickens, and that was kind of tied to even the growing cycle. So in order to survive, you have to cook, but in order to cook, you have to grow, like corn and tomato and bamboo and wheat. But the growing cycle took forever. It took greater than 24 hours. It took an eternity for something to grow. And the developers had to add a tool into the game called Gronk, where if you fed it stew, you could basically have it guard your crops, and that meant that you could then go around and hunt and gather what you need. But you also needed iron to make that stew, so you couldn't plant right away, and it took forever for plants to grow. And really, by the time they even got close to being, fully grown, you had orcs that would come in and just destroy your garden, and it was it felt like it was more work than it's worth. And I was just better off kind of trying to collect the food that's already growing on the island where I know nothing's going to attack it, and try to make a pot to create stew. So that was the big challenge I had there. And lastly, the game has so many bugs and glitches still. Whether it's random sprints of speed as you just are randomly walking, or you collect something, suddenly you just get this burst of speed out of nowhere. So that's kind of glitchy. The clipping, there's tons of clipping in this game, and you'll see at the beginning, you'll see the end of this video where I get clipped through the world at the beginning, and in the end I also get clipped into a hole that I dug, as well as getting hit a couple times by an orc, and I get clipped out of the building I had created that was supposed to protect me. So with that, it's still a very buggy game, which to me is a big problem because this is supposed to be a 1.0 version, which typically for most developers a 1.0 is a true release. It's an official release to all players, and these problems or these cons that are in this game really tell me that there's still a lot of development that needs to be done, and this does not feel like a true 1.0 release, but more like a beta of the game. And with the polygon levels where they are, and kind of the graphics, they're kind of interesting because they try to do more real life like trees and stuff, but I just feel that it's lacking for this type of a game. And also, as you look at the game itself, it's interesting. The orcs are definitely interesting, but the low polygons and even the sound. You'll have music come up, and it'll last maybe 30 seconds to a minute, or a little bit. But you also have a lot of time where there's zero music whatsoever. So you kind of just hear the pitter patter of your feet as you walk around, or you might hear the chickens as they're clucking, or a little bit of noise, ambient noise. But there's not a lot there to really draw you into the game. And kind of those bugs and those flaws in the game really kind of detract from this behavior that it's supposed to be a survival game. And without that replayability, I just don't feel the value in this game in the long run. You'll play it a couple times, you find it interesting, you find it kind of a unique idea, but when you know where everything is, it doesn't stay relevant, and that's a big thing. But now the developer has stated that they're doing monthly updates, and they're providing those free. So maybe in the future, as this game develops further and the developer has time to go and do more with the game, it can become something more. But right now, the way it stands, it just is not. It does not feel like a fully developed game, or it does not. It's just there's too many bugs in it for it to be a version 1.0, in my opinion. So with that, the concept is great. I think it's a very interesting concept. It's things that people would love. and people would be interested in doing. So I kind of give that concept a 7, but only because it's been overplayed. We have so many of these type of survival games now, and so many do it better. I personally, I think DayZ, or even doing something like a PUBG, I'd rather try those. I'd rather be shooting down survival games like that instead of spending 20, 30 minutes trying to build up resources to die in 10, or to try to survive for 15 minutes at night. I'd rather just have that constant action going and do that. So I think it's an overplayed kind of genre at this point in time. So that's why I kind of give it a 7. Now, for the gameplay itself and the game and the design, that's where this game lacks a lot, and I give it a 4.5 max, just because there's just too many bugs for it to be a true release. A version 1.0, as the developers called it. And with that, this game kind of sits right in the 6, kind of that 6.5 range, maybe 5.5. Sorry, my math's kind of off today. It's a little slow. Right around the 5.5, 6 range for the game. It's one that might be worth trying, but in my opinion, I just don't think the value's there at this point in time. Maybe as the game develops, it'll have more value. But anyways, I hope kind of some of these insights of us playing the game for you and giving you this review, I hope that gives you kind of an idea about what the game is and gives you that little perspective to help you make a decision whether you're interested in it or not. And again, if you enjoy the video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please make sure you click like on that video. Even if you don't like this review, let us know. We always welcome honest feedback. We'd like to know what you guys feel, what you guys like, what you guys dislike, so that we can then help improve with the channel. But anyways, hopefully we'll see you guys in the next episode.